The Russian Federation has repeatedly initiated the discussion of the facts of the implementation of military biological programs in Ukraine and Western countries, in violation of the Convention on the Prohibition of Biological and Toxic Weapons, on the profile international platforms, including the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly. You can watch the briefings held earlier on this topic on the website of the Russian Ministry of Defense. To date, we have received only excuses and accusations of disinformation. Another proof has been obtained that biolaboratories in Ukraine were financed and reconstructed using the federal budget of the United States. The map of biolaboratories in Ukraine is provided in the press release published by the Office of the Head of National Intelligence of the United States. The documents list the objects in Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Lviv, Vinnytsia, Ternopil, Chernigov, and Odessa. I would like to emphasize that there were studies of plagues, Siberian ulcer, tularemia, rabies, Marburg, and Ebola. The locations and directions of the research activities of the biolaboratories designated by the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs are currently confirmed by the materials of the National Intelligence Service of the United States. The studies were carried out under the condition of special secrecy, with the restriction of the access of Ukrainian specialists to information and premises. During the special military operation, we have received additional documents confirming that the direction of the works carried out does not correspond to the current problems of Ukraine's healthcare, the main of which are socially significant diseases. The priority was to study the striking properties of potential agents of biological weapons, as well as stimulators of infections aimed at undermining the state's economy. In the published press release of the National Intelligence Service of the United States of America, an excerpt from the list of biolaboratories with an indication of the amount of funding and information on subcontracting organizations is provided. I would like to dwell on the Odessa Institute of Antifungal Research, named after Mechnikov, designated as a place of storage of biological weapons. As follows, the Ministry of Defense of the United States of America is the client of its reconstruction, and the contractor is a company affiliated with the American military agency Black & Veatch. I would like to remind you that the Institute's activities raised many questions. At the initiative of the Russian Federation, it held a constitutional meeting of the states members of the Convention on the Prohibition of Biological and Toxin Weapons. They concerned the unreasonably high volumes of containers with stimulators of cholera, tularemia, and brucellosis, in the absence of a documentary confirmation of their use for peaceful purposes. This violation is recorded in the report of the Ministry of Health of Ukraine on the results of the inspection of the collection of stimulators in the specified institution. The nomenclature of pathogens, which does not correspond to the current health problems of Ukraine, where the increase in the incidence of measles, diphtheria, and tuberculosis is recorded, indicates attempts to develop biological weapons components in Ukrainian biolaboratories. The Institute of Experimental and Clinical Veterinary Medicine in Kharkiv is another institution that we mentioned earlier. The list of infectious diseases studied by the Institute includes severe diseases that can be transmitted to a person and damage the agricultural industry, including the highly pathogenic fungus of birds, as well as the African and classic swine flu, the Newcastle disease, which has a pandemic potential. It raises questions about the situation with the SAPA stimulator. A separate project on its study was financed and completed within the framework of the American Program of Contagious Infections, despite the fact that the cases of this disease have never been recorded in Ukraine. I would like to remind you about the Ukrainian projects that have a clear military biological orientation under the code name UPI, which were not included in the specified press release. The UPI-1 project was aimed at studying rickettsia and other diseases, which are transmitted by stimulators. Within the framework of the large-scale UPI-2 project, the mechanisms of transborder dissemination and migration of tularemia carriers and Siberian ulcer were assessed. We have information on the implementation of 10 similar projects, which provided for the work with stimulators of particularly dangerous and economically significant infections, such as the Congo-Crimean fever, leptospirosis, cartilage encephalitis, and African swine flu. Our repeated statements on the formation of the Democratic Party of the United States of the legislative base for the financing of military biological studies were confirmed in the published press release of the head of the National Intelligence. Scientific organizations and large pharmaceutical companies are involved in this scheme. Non-governmental organizations were involved under the state guarantee. The main contractors of the U.S. military department were the companies of Metabiota, Black & Veatch, CH2M Hill, on which the construction of bio-objects and the supply of equipment was imposed. The distribution of funds was also carried out through the system of grants through the Ukrainian and international scientific and technological centers. We consider the published documents to be another proof of violations of the Kiev regime's obligations within the framework of the convention, and we will seek to clarify the situation on the relevant international platforms. Thus, all accusations of the Russian Federation of disseminating disinformation, conducting hybrid operations in order to mislead the international community, are absolutely false.